All right. We have hit 7 o'clock, so I figure I should probably get this thing started. If you're well, I guess everyone's joining us here for the first time. This is Beyond the Bar, a live podcast by Deos Contemporary Ballet. A little bit of a first time thing there, because if you're in the LinkedIn audience of mine, there's a number of live streams that I used to do that were a little bit more technical in nature. So today we're streaming to my personal LinkedIn audience. You can also find this stream and future streams on the Deos Contemporary Ballet YouTube channel, as well as Deos Contemporary Ballet's Facebook channel. So If you happened to have found this live stream on our very first relatively unpublicized live stream, welcome. So glad you're here. We've got a number of things that we're hoping to chat about a little bit today. Yeah, I've got. I had a number of guests. I was so excited for this first one to have some people from the audience, some people from our company, and just schedules did not align for our first one. So uh, if you're interested in hearing a little bit more about who all's on our team and who comes to our shows, we will definitely be adding guests to the live stream in the future one. Although I do have one very important guest that I'll be introducing a little bit later. Tess Sinke, the artistic director of Deos Contemporary Ballet. And I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Andrew, the executive director. I often forget to introduce myself if you come to our shows. That's usually the second or third time I come out. I realize I need to say, hi, my name's Andrew, and this is what I do for Deos. If you haven't been to a Deos show or don't really know what Deos Contemporary Ballet is, Deos is a professional performance organization. So a lot of ballet companies have both the performance side as well as the school side. Deos Ballet is strictly performance. That's all we do day in, day out. Um, and we love it. We just had our latest show, Collide series, which we'll talk a little bit later in the stream, and then I'll tell you about our next performance called Trifles. That's going to be the focus of the stream today. Is we'll go through a little bit of an introduction, synopsis. And sort of what you can expect from that piece and how to get tickets and where that fits in with the growth that we've had this year. And then we'll leave it off with a little bit of conversation with Tess about the growth of the company, as well as additional opportunities that are coming up very soon here that you can see Deos perform. Before we get into all that, though, I would be remiss if I didn't take a moment and say thank you to all of the sustainers and people who support us through partnership and businesses that really make Deos work. We really couldn't be doing half or probably even a quarter of what we've been able to accomplish without the both financial but also volunteer support of all of these wonderful people and businesses. So if you don't mind, I'm going to quick roll a little bit of a thank you list here. Our current sustainers, which there's a couple of different levels of sustainers. That's mostly based on financial giving. Like I said earlier, we are so fortunate to have a growing list of people who have decided to make a financial commitment to helping Deos grow. And then as you see here, our partners, want to give a special shout out to our three partners. First one being Athletico, which is our official provider of physical therapy. At Deos, the health and wellness of our dancers is number one, and Athletico keeps our dancers in tip-top shape, not just fixing things that come up, but all of the preventative stuff, which is so very important. Second one being Michigan Ballet Academy. As I said, Deos, we do not have a school, but we do partner with one of the best schools in the area, Michigan Ballet Academy. We have a nice long relationship with them and have had a great opportunity to pull some of their students into our productions. And then our professional dancers have also been in some of Michigan Ballet Academy's productions. And then lastly, Kicks Dancewear. For those of you who maybe are newer to ballet, a lot of people think right away about the point shoes. And yes, Kicks Dancewear is where we get our point shoes. They're our official provider. And they are just such an incredible team to work with. And the point shoes themselves, just such an important tool and something that I with my background as an engineer, just have developed a wonder of not just how dancers can leverage these tools to go all the way up on point, but all of the history and construction behind them. But I am rambling on a little bit, and let's get to some really much more interesting topics than me talking about the engineering of point shoes. So, first things up on the list today, we have our latest show that we just performed at St. Cecilia's. Let me see if I can do this transition correctly. Nope. Collide Series 23. This was a massive show. It's our biggest show of the year that we do every summer. And we were fortunate to perform Collide for the first time at St. Cecilia Music Center. We've done a few performances there within the last year, but this is the first time bringing the Collide series to it. And we had a record-breaking audience. Such a great response. And instead of hearing me ramble on a little bit more about all of the content that we had, I thought I'd bring in Tess Sinke, our artistic director, to see if she'd be able to give us a little bit of a recap about the show, the sort of pieces that we had in there, and sort of her thought process behind how she pieced together this particular rep show. So Tess, I'm going to be bringing you online here. Let's see here. There we go. How's it going, Tess?
Good. Yeah, so Collide, like Andrew said, it was one of our best performances, especially audience-wise. But I think it was also one of our strongest performances from a just performance standpoint as well. So we had 12 professional dancers with us. 6 of them are our full-time dancers, and then we bring in dancers from all over the U.S. for our summer seasons. We had dancers this year from St. Louis Ballet, Louisville Ballet, Fort Wayne Ballet, Charlottesville Ballet, and then also some freelancers. And we also grow our team over the summer besides just dancers. We are really blessed to have extra rehearsal directors to assist and everything. So we also had Christine Settembrino, who is a rehearsal director at St. Louis Ballet, work with us over the summer, and a handful of guest teachers as well. So the show itself went really well. We brought back a couple fan favorites like My Dearest Girl, which is based off of the tragic love story of John Keats and his fiancée Fanny Braun. If you don't know the story, him and Fanny Braun fall in love through writing letters back and forth to each other. And then he found out he was very sick, and he went away. And when he found out he was dying, he just stopped writing to Fanny. So he basically ghosted her, and she had to find out that he had died from someone else, and she never really got that closure. And so it's a true story and a very tragic story. And we still have the letters that John Keats wrote to Fanny today. So it's really exciting to read through all of those and base the ballet off of his letters to her. And we had also a guest choreographer, Savannah Dunn, coming in from Boston? New York. I think Boston. Ooh.
The East Coast.
There we go. And so she set a really beautiful piece that she was able to create in just 2 days with our dancers, which was a really intense 2 days, but it was beautiful, and she was lovely to have. And the actually was also set to an original composition, which is something that at Deos we're really excited about and want to continue to grow in that area as we grow. So that was really exciting to have a guest choreographer who also envisioned that and was able to do that. And then we also, I'll just keep going through all the pieces.
Yeah.
We had August Tides, which was our final installment of our 4-season ballet. So if you are a Deos audience member, you've seen our shows over the year and saw us go through each one of the seasons. So our last season was August Tide, set to the summer section of Vivaldi's 4 Seasons. And the hope with that is that these pieces can stand alone as individual pieces, but we also could potentially perform them someday as a full length with all 4 seasons to Vivaldi's music, obviously. And then we also had a piece called In Silence We Grieve. This piece was a very contemporary pas de deux between 3 different couples. And it was inspired by the poem by Lord Byron, which just a little snippet of that poem is in secret we met, in silence I grieve, if I should forget. Oh no, now I'm blanking it. But basically, if I should greet thee after long years, if I should meet thee after long years, how should I greet thee? In silence and tears. There we go. So that's what that piece was inspired by. Not good under pressure.
Doing that live is tough.
Yeah. And so that piece, yeah, it was very beautiful. Lots of contemporary movement, something that was very collaborative, working on with the dancers. And then something that I would say was kind of new for Deos was a entire second act was Twelfth Night, and it was a very comedic ballet, which I don't think that's new for Deos, but that long form comedic piece is new for Deos.
Yeah, because you've done things like The Printer, which was the prior Collide series. And then there's a whole bunch of comedy that you like to throw in the middle of other pieces as well.
Yeah, I think I realized how much I love comedy last year. I've played with it before, but I love playing around with the timing of the music and figuring out, like, you know, how can we make the music make things more funny with the dancers' interactions, and just like how far can we push things comedically and timing wise. And so, yeah, we've done short form comedic pieces, and I felt like it was the right summer to try and do a longer one, especially just because of the team that we have. Comedy pieces, they can land so flat if you have the wrong people doing the different roles. And so we just, with our summer team, it was just kind of felt like the perfect group of people to play each of the characters. So I think that Twelfth Night, I think it's hilarious. I was not sure. I was definitely incredibly worried going into it because
let's come behind the scenes here. I mean, this is beyond the bar. So I remember Tech Night, us setting everything up, running through everything, and you saying, all of the props on stage aren't right. We need to change everything that's happening on stage the night before shows. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
It wasn't the night before. It was earlier in the day before we
opened. That's right. Yeah. Same day change.
I believe I said something to the effect of, this is not up to the Deo standard, which is but yeah, we made the adjustments that we needed to, and I think it read really, really well. But yeah, it was really fun to make it. And it was definitely, I was more nervous about that piece than any of the other pieces, because everything else kind of, you know, it's either really beautiful or it's very balletic, which some audience members like, or it's very, very like, you know, contemporary, moody, which also some people gravitate towards. So like everything else, you're like, okay, there's a good chunk of people in the audience who are going to really, you know, this is good. This is what they like. But 12th Night, the way we went with it, I like to say that our goal was for it to feel like you were attending a really cheaply put on Ren Fair. Kind of. That was like the vibe we were going for. Like we wanted the audience to feel like, okay, this is like what is this? Like a little bit Shakespeare in the Park. You've got barely any props and they're just kind of, you know, doing Shakespeare in the middle of trees. Like that was kind of the goal. That plus, yeah, like kind of Ren Fair-esque. So costumes were not historically accurate. The music was very kind of made you think of being at a Ren Fair.
So costumes, though, you had like a modern day life jacket.
Yeah, so part of the gimmick, because again, a lot of Shakespeare comedy is physical, but it's also very dependent on the words as well. It's very situational, but we had to figure out how to show that situational comedy without having any words. So we had to get really creative with, you know, introducing characters and how to tell the plot point in a way that anyone could understand what was happening. which this is kind of a tangent, I guess, but another big thing of Deos is how do we make ballet relatable? And part of that is making it accessible so that anyone in the audience can watch this and can understand and take something away from it. So I didn't want Shakespeare for people to feel like they had to be a fan of Shakespeare or had to, you know, have read the plays or anything, but that they could come and sit and just think that it was a funny ballet and understood the storyline, whether they knew it previously or not. And so with that being said, yeah, we kind of tried to implement some modern day props to help tell the story and also just to add some fun. So we had a modern day life jacket and just a lot of other little things throw it in.
My
And
favorite
we
was the
also,
scooter going
oh
across
yes,
the
we had a
stage.
scooter going across the stage, a lot of, yeah, Tiffany bag, a lot of fun things. And we also added in things like a very large portrait of the Duke Orsino, partly to show how he's kind of melodramatic, but also to show the characters bringing that when they go to meet Olivia to say, this is the man who is in love with you. Because again, when you've lost the words, wanting to make the story be very, very clear for everyone in the audience, but also stay true to what the original story was, getting creative there. But yeah, it was really fun to take situational comedy and also a lot of the what would have been funny through the words and figure out how to make that more physical. And so there were some scenes that it was just hilarious because of the situation itself that we didn't really have to do a ton to make it funny. And then there were other scenes where it was like, okay, we've got to really make this physical in order for it to be hilarious, because the situation itself isn't really that funny. So we had a lot of fun playing around with that, and it was definitely collaborative. There were a lot of times in rehearsal where I would be choreographing something and I'd stop for a moment to think, and one of the dancers would usually jokingly be like, and what if I did this? And it almost always ended up in the ballet, which I think is really fun. It probably should have said choreographed by Tess and dancers because they were equally hilarious in the rehearsal process and kind of like kept inspiring me to make it more and more funny because they were all very willing to go all out with their characters.
Well, that's something that I'd say is probably, special about our rehearsal process is like there's plenty of original works in the ballet world, but just the sheer volume of new work that you put out and get to create collaboratively with the dancers. So like it's stuff made for the dancers that we have to put on the stage in the time that it was set is just something that's so unique, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of companies, yeah, do similar things to that. But I'll say, as a choreographer, I really really enjoy choreographing specifically on each dancer. And again, every choreographer works very very differently. Some, make very detailed plans before they're in the studio. I personally can't work that way. I'm very researched. I'm very well prepared to go into the studio, but I don't choreograph any actual steps until I'm in the studio and I create them kind of on the spot with the dancers. Part of that is maybe because I'm a procrastinator by nature, and so that extra pressure like forces me to be creative. I don't know, but
I'd go
I
with
do a ton of
intuitive.
research. I map out the music. I know the feeling that I want to be emoted. I don't know if that's a word, but I know the feeling that I want for every moment, and I know that there's 3 dancers or 2 dancers or that this is a pas, and I know what dancer is on stage at each part. But the steps themselves I don't do till I'm in the studio, and I think that creates a really collaborative process, and also, yeah, it makes it really unique, I think, in that every piece is choreographed specifically for that dancer. And in that same way, when we do reset pieces, I am one of those people that I am totally open to changing the choreography if we've got a totally different person doing it, because some things just are going to look better on different people. And so I think our pieces, every time you see them, I mean, this is true for all ballet, every performance, you're seeing a different performance because it's live art. But
Yeah.
I think for us, even every time you see a piece, it's going to be very different depending on who's performing it, not just because they're bringing their own artistic voice, but also because we literally change the piece to fit the different dancers too. So
Yeah. Well, I had asked for 5 minutes of your time, and you are giving us just such great, deep behind the scenes insight for much longer than that. So thank you for adding a little bit more to what you had committed to. But I do want to leave you a chance here to say anything else about Collide series, especially with this year, having the dancers year round and all of that. Was there what did you feel this year during Collide series that you didn't feel in previous years?
I think during the show itself, I just felt immense pride because us also getting to Saint Cecilia and having our first Collide on on that stage is just a really big milestone for us. And so, yeah, just sitting back and seeing all of our dancers on, a really beautiful stage, and just especially opening night, the audience was so great and was so responsive to everything. It kind of took away all the other stresses, because it just kind of felt like, okay, like we've gotten over another milestone. We're at another spot now and can continue to grow from here. But that was really exciting.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. I think I do have you on the schedule to jump back in a little while. So thank you for being willing to be a guest twice in one show. All right. Take care, Tess. Thanks.
Bye.
So that was Collide Series 23. Like I said before, and as Tess reiterated, it was an incredible show, and we had record audience for it. We are so happy to be performing at St. Cecilia Music Center, and it was a necessity for us to find a larger space because this past year was our first year of year-round performances. So when Deos originally started in 2018, we'd only have one show a year, and that was the summer show. Because we didn't have any employee dancers, we only had contracted dancers. And the only time you can really contract a lot of dancers, or the best time to contract a lot of dancers, is during the summer when they're all on layoff with their current companies. And so for the first 4-ish years, whether you want to count the COVID year of 2020 or not, we did just one summer show. And this last year, our year going from June to May, we had 4 main stage productions, and we had a few additional sort of commissioned works along the way as well. But it was our first year of year-round performances. And in March, we had our Ember series, and we had great turnout in the very, very small space that we were using, to the point where every one of our 3 shows was completely sold out. And it was heartbreaking to tell people that we didn't have any more tickets and no, we weren't doing another weekend of shows because people had to go back home on their contracts. And so that's when we started looking for a larger space. And fortunately, with St. Cecilia Music Center, if you haven't been there, it's downtown Grand Rapids. It's a beautiful auditorium. It's built for music. And so, like, the acoustics in the space are incredible. As a tech person, I love working with their soundboard and all their equipment. But then beyond that, it's a good stage, and we have our Marley laid out, and yeah, it just makes a really beautiful space to perform in, and there's a lot of capacity for us to grow as well. So we're super excited that people are starting to hear about, not only the quality of the shows, but all the different topics and wide range that we're able to bring into a show. I don't know if you were tracking all the pieces that Tess was going through with Collide, but most of our shows are repertory shows, which means instead of like one story like The Nutcracker or Giselle or Sleeping Beauty, there's multiple smaller pieces that all have a common theme. So I didn't say this earlier, but collide, the common theme for all the pieces are when reality collides with your plans. So it's about all of the unexpected things that can happen in life, whether that's a good surprise or maybe not so good of a surprise. So that's the theme for each of the pieces. Every time we do a collide, the choreography, the pieces that we do are changing every single year. And that's how all of our other, or most of our other shows have been as well. This next one is going to be different. This next show that we're doing is going to be at when we normally have done our epilogue series, our end of year sort of show. And instead of doing epilogue, a rep show around the same theme of endings and all of that type of stuff, we are going to be bringing a single story to stage. And that story, let's see here if I got a nice visual for us. I forgot to get a visual for this one. I'll just put up a picture because pictures are cool and we've got great photography and dancers. So this is sort of the poster image that we use for it, and it's called Trifles. And Trifles is not a story that we've made up. What you'll see here on this image is a bird cage, which is one of the motifs within the piece. I got the wrong button here. So Trifles is not a story that we've made up. It's a short story by Susan Glassbell written a while ago. And instead of me stumbling through a description of what Trifles is, we are very, very fortunate at Deos to have a dramaturge. I had never heard of a dramaturge before getting involved with Deos in 2018 with Tess. A dramaturge, at least in my understanding of the role, is someone who works really, really closely with the choreographer, Tess, to bring in all of the literary elements and all of that historical background that's often needed in order to take something that maybe exists as written word and find the appropriate ways in a collaborative sense to translate those written motifs into a visual presentation through movement dance on stage. So our dramaturge, Kathleen Lewis, has a long history with Tess. They're actually, in fact, sisters. And so as Tess, throughout all of these years, has been developing her choreographic skills, Kathleen has also been studying at college and beyond literature and stage management and theatrical productions. So we've really got a dynamic duo of being able to pull in the literary excellence as well as the choreographic excellence to tell really interesting stories. And so you might have caught a hint of that when Tess was going through the pieces that we did in Collide, where we've got poetry going on, we've got Shakespeare stuff going on. In the past, we've had other literary works. And so, without further ado, I'm going to, instead of trying to describe Trifles, I'm going to use the excellent words of Kathleen Lewis. She has written a nice summary for me of Trifles. And so that way you're not just looking at a talking head here. I'm going to try to click through a couple of photos that we've taken, as well as some video clips from, get this, the last time we did Trifles. So this might not be well known, but Trifles is actually a show that Deos has done in the past. We did it in the spring of 2021. So here we were, early 2021, thinking, wow, that COVID year of 2020 was rough. and it kind of feels like we're getting out of this and things are going in the right direction. We wanted to take a chance and start developing another type of piece. We'd done only rep shows previously, and we're like, we should take this and do this as a story piece and invite people in. We did, very extensive sort of COVID protocols with pods and all of that stuff. And it was a really, really well received, but small audience. And we're so excited to take this piece and put it on the big stage for a larger audience because it is a piece worth seeing. So let me talk a little bit about the summary. I've said Trifles, but you have no idea what Trifles is unless maybe you're more cultured than I and have already heard of Susan Glassbell's piece, written work. So I'm going to sort of clip through a couple of things here. Trifles, these are the words of Kathleen Lewis, our dramaturge. Trifles opens on a cold winter morning as a group of 2 women and 3 men enter an empty house. The owner of the house, John Wright, was found dead in his bed with a rope around his neck the day before. His wife, Minnie Wright, was found sitting in a rocking chair, claiming to have slept through her husband's murder. The county attorney, the sheriff, and Mr. Hale, who's a neighbor who found the body, have been sent to investigate the Wrights' home to build a case against Mrs. Wright, who's pictured here in our previous iteration. The sheriff's wife, Mrs. Peters, and Mrs. Hale have also come along with the men in order to gather some personal effects for Mrs. Wright while she's in jail. The main obstacle facing the men's case is finding a motive, something to explain why Mrs. Wright would have killed her husband, and why specifically with a rope around his neck. The men leave the women alone in the kitchen while they investigate the rest of the house and the grounds, claiming nothing of importance would be in a room full of women's things. Trifles, if you will. Meanwhile, as the women go through Minnie Wright's kitchen to collect her things, they take note of several cues that the Wrights' home was a cold, isolated place, and that George Wright, her husband, was a hard, unyielding man. As both women piece together what life was like for Minnie Wright, Mrs. Hale laments not reaching out to her. She recalls what Minnie was like before she was married, that as Minnie Foster, her maiden name, she was full of life and song. The women find an empty bird cage with the door violently broken off, but no sign of the bird. Mrs. Hale recalls that there had been a man peddling canaries a while back and concludes that Minnie must have gotten one to keep her company, to bring a little joy and song into her quiet house. Then they find a beautiful box with a dead canary inside. Its neck is broken. Mrs. Hale speculates that John wouldn't have liked that bird, that he would have choked the life out of it just as he choked the song out of Minnie. Then Mrs. Hale wonders what it'd be like to be lonely for so long and finally have a bird for company, only to have it ripped away and for stillness to set back in. Mrs. Peter remarks that she knows what that stillness is like. When the men have returned, having finished their investigation of the house, they ask the women if they find anything interesting. Rather than present any of the clues that they found, like some of the stitching in this quilt here that we're having seen on the video, rather than present any of the clues that they found, the women say no, they didn't find anything interesting, and they hide the canary, both having come to the conclusion that Minnie Wright did in fact kill her husband, but the blame did not rest with her alone. So, interesting story. Sort of a murder mystery, a very feminist tale in that I think one of the original titles of the work was A Jury of Her Peers, or something like that. Probably mixing it up a little bit. but it's this idea that, okay, if they were to present these clues to if the women were to present these clues to the men and then she were to be put on trial in that day and age, the people who would be in the jury wouldn't be women. They wouldn't be people who would understand her side of the stories. Therefore, she couldn't have a jury of peers. And so she wouldn't be able to have potentially what justice there might be there for Minnie. So, anyway, I found this piece fascinating. I had no idea about this story ahead of time. Tess and Kathleen said, "Hey, we're doing this piece. COVID's not over. It's going to be great. You know, we're going to bring in some new dancers contracted," which one of them, Leah, which we had up on the screen a little bit earlier. She was, that was the first time she danced with us, and she has been a consistent, strong dancer with our team since then, since 2021 early. And we just went for it, and I loved the story, and we had a chance to speak with a couple of area literary groups as well and sort of go through some of the clips and the pieces and talk about what it's like, more so Tess, not me, obviously, about what it's like to take a literary work and turn it into a ballet, which I don't think is a very common sort of art form for people to take in stories like that. So it was really cool to be able to do it. So I think in a soon to be done live stream, we're probably going to dive a little bit more into some footage and some photos. I'd like to bring in some guests that were there at the original world premiere of Trifles to talk a little bit about the experience and share about what they liked about it. And yeah, just to give a little bit more flavor for what this upcoming piece is going to be. But if I've already piqued your interest, I do want to take a moment and just show a little bit about how, if you are interested in coming to the show, how you might be able to get tickets. So what I'm going to do here is quick remind myself how to do a share screen, because I was foolish and did not do this in advance. So here we go. Figured it out. Didn't take me long. All right. So what you'll see here is the Deos Contemporary Ballet website. If you want to know the address for it, it is deosballet.com. Should land on a page like this. And what you'll see is some of our past shows and upcoming shows. But the easiest way to get to Trifles is to go up here to performances and click on Trifles. What you'll hopefully be seeing here soon is a lot more content, some video clips, some other synopses, introductions to characters. We're going to have all kinds of really good stuff on here, as well as talking about it in future live streams. But specifically for the purposes of buying tickets to this upcoming show, which I forgot to tell you the dates, September 30th through October 1st. So we've got a little bit of time before the show. But like I said, our audience is growing. We do have a big space, but you know, buying tickets early, always great. So you can buy tickets. They're available today. And like I said, they're at St. Cecilia Music Center, downtown Grand Rapids. And you can do it using this interface right here. Find a show. We have our two shows, a 7 p.m. on Saturday and a 2 p.m. on Sunday. Now, we've occasionally done 3 shows and even 4 shows in a weekend, but this one is going to be only 2 shows this time around. There's a little bit more technical stuff on the back end that is sort of pushing us to that shorter amount. And of course, you can buy 1, 2, or however many tickets you want. You know what? I will actually go through this little workflow. When you go to hit purchase, it's going to bring you to the checkout page, and it's a very typical checkout page where we just need to get your email to be able to contact you if there's any problems with your orders. And then we can go through, and it's a normal workflow. If you have any issues, you can always reach out to our team. There's a contact form on our website, whether you're signing up through our newsletter, or of course, you can go to contact here and send us a note. Otherwise, my personal email, Andrew, my name, at deosballet.com. And I wanted to cover a couple of things about how tickets work with Deos because we got a lot of questions at our last show at St. Cecilia that we're going to be putting up these facts, frequently asked questions on the website as well. But all of our shows up to this point have been general admission. So you find a seat that you want when you show up. There's no assigned seats, so you want to come a little bit early and make sure you get the seats that you want. But other than that, it's general admission. And generally, we actually don't use physical tickets, like a printed out ticket. We like to have a little bit more of I don't want to say like a seminar feel, but we really like getting to know our audience. And so one of the things that we do is we have you check in where we basically just look up your order either by your name, your email, your order number, cell phone. We've got that info from your order online, and that just gives us a chance to say hi, put names to a face. And let me tell you, it is one of my favorite things before and after a show, getting to meet new audience members, as well as ones that have consistently been coming to show after they've discovered us. It's really great with the current size of our audience that we have this nice connection with pretty much everybody who walks through the door, whether they're from Grand Rapids or driving in from Detroit, which there are a few that make that long trip for every single one of our shows. So thank you. With that, let's see here. I'm going to stop sharing this and quick double check what my schedule looks like here. Yes. Okay. We're bringing Tess back. We all want to see Tess and want to talk with Tess. She is so great. Much better than sitting and watching me be a talking head. Before I bring her back on, though, just on the topic of growth, like I mentioned, our audience is growing. We've been in St. Cecilia Music Center since our Awaken performance, and boy, May was a crazy time with there being grant applications. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization, but also the performance, and we had our first ever fundraiser. Very successful fundraiser, all in the same weekend. Terrible decision, never doing all three at the same time again. But one of the things that I wanted to bring Tess on, and Tess, just as a forewarning, you're coming on the stream now. One of the things that I wanted to talk with Tess about is as a result of our growth and having a successful fundraiser and a growing audience, we've been able to pull together the finances to have dancers not just contracted for really short time periods around the show, but to have dancers employed, 6 of them here year round and have a lot more studio time. So I wanted to ask you, Tess, as the choreographer, the one working with the dancers all the time, what is that like? And how is that different having dancers around year round instead of just really short contracts?
Yeah, so number one, it's awesome in general. But like you said, we have 6 dancers who are now W-2 employees with us. So they they're working with us year round. This was our first year having that where they were with us full time or year round. And then going forward this season, we have them for even more time every day in the studio as well. And not only has it just, number one, helped us put on performances more regularly and have a regular season, but it's also allowed the dancers, I think, to really grow more artistically and technically, spending more time in the studio with us. And it just helps show the dancers that growth trajectory that what we're building up towards. And I think it also says something about how we're building that growth, because we're not just jumping from, being a contract-based company into a 40-hour work week when we don't have everything in place to support that. We're trying to be very fiscally responsible by taking small steps to grow so that we are building a company that's going to last and be here for the future and be here many, many years. And in order to do that, sometimes it sucks, but you have to take small steps. And so I think it's really good for the dancers and our audience to see that we're making all of those steps, but for them to also see that we're making those steps wisely by, doing the important work first of laying a really important and strong foundation to build off of. And so, yes, so we have dancers, year round now and more time in the studio, which is all really wonderful. I want them in the studio more than we have them in. But again, that's part of that growth that we're talking about. But yeah, it's allowed us to have more time to kind of play in the studio, I guess, as far as choreographically, to spend a little bit more time on each piece and experiment with different things. It's allowed us to create a ton of new work, where in the past, kind of trying to pick and choose what we're going to do for Collide. It's allowed us to do a lot more and allowed us more opportunities to work with local artists. So this past year, we worked with Teresa Haggerty, who's a local composer and musician. We worked with her 2 separate times. And then we also worked with Letitia Japp, who is a local violinist, very, very talented. And we worked with her for our spring production as well. So we're really excited to keep doing stuff like that, making those local connections and work with whether they're artists or musicians or actors. For Trifles, there's 3 male actors in the ballet. And so we've got 3 actors we're working with. So the more we're in the studio and the more shows we get to put on, the more connections we get to make with the community, which is at the end of the day kind of our goal to bring great art to Grand Rapids.
I had to laugh a little bit while you were talking because you talked about all these things being small steps, and like they do sometimes feel like small steps, but going from 1 show a year to 4 shows a year was a very, very big step. I would say
no, they're
probably,
huge
yeah.
steps. It's just that we're taking those steps slowly, meaning that we didn't try and do that our first year of operations. And I know that there are some newer companies and small companies that do try to do that, and it can work. I'm not gonna diss companies or anything, but it also I think it can set you up for failure sometimes if you're not building a really strong foundation internally as far as the operations, and we're doing that. And so I'm really proud of that. And it's great growth, but sometimes it does feel like I want 12 dancers year round, and we're not there yet. And it's good that we're not there yet because we're learning and growing. And so when we get to that point, we'll just, we learn from every show. Andrew and I always sit back and say, okay, what did we learn from this show, and what can we improve on, and what can we do better? And we also consistently meet with the dancers, not to give them feedback necessarily, but mostly to get feedback from them and say, okay, what are we doing well, and where are we falling short, and how can we improve this company and improve how things are run. And so the more we get to do that, that means when we are take another big step to more dancers in the studio, or way more hours, or touring a show, or whatever it is, we're just going to be that much more prepared for it because we take the time to listen to what our dancers and audience members and everyone have to say. So
Yeah, and that transition to having dancers year round and not just contracted came from some of that feedback. And there's a lot of wisdom in how people have traditionally done things within the industry that we try to learn from. But there are also a lot of cases, especially when you take the time to talk with the people in the industry, like the dancers and the audience, and understand what are the real pain points that they still feel in the industry. And one of those was that sort of like annual contract idea. If you look across the industry, there's a lot of companies where there's like guaranteed minimum number of weeks, but there's always a significant layoff, both in the summer, but often also after performances, where it's sort of on the dancers to take that time off and to recover and do their own thing, but they're also generally not paid during that layoff time.
Yeah, I think the the inconsistency with money coming in for the dancers can be hard. Just across the board, yeah, at a lot of different places, and that's kind of just a norm in the industry. Is when you're on layoff, you're on layoff, and then also like the timing of when contracts get renewed for dancers. There we have had so many stories of people who have auditioned for us in the past, or just people that we know um, who, they get told that they're not getting their contract renewed too late in the season to go out and audition for new companies and stuff. And so I'm trying to really work on how can we make sure that our dancers have job security and know, you know, not have that stress and worry. And then, yeah, like cash flow, like you're not getting paid and then going, a month or sometimes 3 months where you're not getting paid and having to go on like unemployment, which is what some dancers, professional dancers do during their layoff. So I think those were just some of those things that we're trying to tackle and make those improvements for our dancers.
Yeah, rather grow slow and get those things right than grow quick and maybe just do the thing that everybody else does. Like to innovate a little bit, don't we?
Sometimes it
So
works.
I think we got a pretty high success rate with our innovations. You are a phenomenal filter because going behind the scenes, which I think is
There have been
part of what Beyond the Bar is about, I put out far too many ideas that are often horrendous. Not like ethically or morally horrendous,
no.
just like
You're coming from outside the nonprofit world and the arts world and especially the ballet world. And so some of your ideas, you're like, what if we just did this? I'm like, no, we
not
can't
how it
do
works.
that. We can't do that. Yeah. I think all of the things that we've done actually gone through to like implementing have all been great. Some of the ideas before they get filtered through are not winners, but yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I'll own that. I'm a bad ideas guy that occasionally has a good one, and
Occasionally they're brilliant. So
yeah, and that's why we have such a discerning and talented choreographer and leader as an artistic side to help filter all those things. So, well, anyway, leaving that on a high note, I think we should probably get ready to close out the stream a little bit. But before, well, I'm going to let you go. But before I close out the stream, so thank you, Tess. Thank you so much for joining us.
thanks.
Before we close out this stream, of course, we talked about Collide Series 23, the last show that we did. We talked about Trifles, which is coming at the end of September, 1st of October. Really great, interesting story piece as opposed to our normal repertory shows, not rec shows, or repertory shows. But there's more stuff going on. So I want to pull up a little save the date slide here. And yep, sorry, just clicking around a little bit. So we've got a number of really great opportunities besides Trifles, which you see there as the second one, September 29 through August 1st. In just 2 weeks, we are going to be participating in Grand Rapids Ballet's Summer Festival. This is the second time that they've put on this festival, and we participated last year as well. And let me tell you, this is something you do not want to miss because it is not just the great performance of Grand Rapids Ballet and the great performances of Deo's Contemporary Ballet. We've got a bunch of other community dance groups and dance related groups, lots of dance happening over a 2-day weekend. So that's August 26 and 27. Last year, I don't know all of the details about the event. I probably should, but last year they had food trucks. It's totally free. So this is a phenomenal time to watch performances outside, eat some great food from food trucks, see performances from a wide variety of groups, wide variety, including sort of the cultural heritage that each of the groups have, and just fully experience dance in West Michigan over a weekend. So a little shout out to Grand Rapids Ballet, both for having the vision to pull something like this together to celebrate dance in the area and to invite the community to be a part of it. We're really excited about collaborations like these. Our core value at Deos Contemporary Ballet is to be a good partner. And so that has dance connotations, of course, where you have like a pas de deux or whatever, where you need to have a lot of good communication, a lot of teamwork. It's trying to help each other improve. And that's the sort of mentality that we bring to all of our relationships, including to something like the Grand Rapids Ballet Summer Festival. We have phenomenal groups of dance and dance related activities here in West Michigan. And to get a chance to collaborate with all of them and share that with all of you for free is just so great for our community and our organizations. So please come see us, come see everybody else. It's going to be a blast. We're carrying on beyond that with our regular season. So last year was our first year of full performances. We're continuing a full season again this year. So you can catch our next Ember Series 24 in March 2024. And then we're going to be doing Awaken Series in May. Those are our regular performances. Of course, we do additional things, kind of like the GRB Summer Festival. You can also catch us. There's some hidden things on here. We'll be doing participating in Michigan Ballet Academy's Nutcracker. There's probably going to be a few commissioned or outreach sort of small pop-up opportunities between now and the end of the year. And I'm gonna cut back since there's not any. Whoops, there's not any info. There we go. Sorry, took me a month to figure it out. Because there's no info on the save the date, and if you poke around our website trying to find it, you're not going to see it. We do have a very, very fun event coming up, and we aren't talking about it too much. We're going to be releasing more details about it slowly through these live streams, but just I think I'll leave it at this. We've got a really fun event for adults. So this is going to be 21 plus because there's going to be alcohol involved and all of that. But it's going to be a very fun evening of celebration, joy, a lot of hilarity. And I'm going to leave it at that. So if an evening like that sounds fun to you, maybe you might want to jump onto our newsletter. Maybe you might want to come and join some of our future live streams to hear a little bit more, because over the next month or two, we haven't really figured out the exact time frame. We're going to be dropping little hints about what's coming up. Maybe even passphrases, speakeasy to be able to get in sort of thing. It's going to be a blast and kind of a unique experience in the ballet world. Those are the types of things that we try to build a lot here, the unique experiences, something familiar to the ballet fans, but also something unexpected that everyone, ballet fan or not, appreciates and enjoys. So we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us. Please send us feedback on things that you liked seeing in our performances, that you like hearing that we've got coming up. Encourage you to get involved. You can always reach out to us via our website or my personal Deos email, Andrew at Deos Ballet. We're always looking for volunteers simple things, even like moving things behind stage or helping people check into the show. Lots of volunteer opportunities. And then again, at the beginning of this live stream, I rolled our sustainers. If you have the opportunity to financially support organizations you care about, I would love, love, love if you would consider supporting Deos financially as we grow and put on more performances, have more studio time, and just really take part in elevating some of the creative and artistic energy that's happening here in West Michigan, specifically around dance. And then, of course, as I said, you can join the newsletter online or by dropping your email in the comments, which maybe you don't want to do because you might get spam. Get in touch with us. We'll get connected with you. Love having you all as an audience. Thank you so much. And until next time, take care.